everyone, welcome back to my channel. A couple days ago, I managed to reach veteran and leaderboards with the team that you guys are seeing on the screen right now. And I did it in the Summer Cup Ultra League Edition, obviously, not in Master League. We all know I do not have the best Master League Pokemon, but I have been having a lot of fun in the Summer Cup. Now, I know that these battles are from 2 days ago. However, over the past couple of days, I have almost exclusively just been using this team that you guys are seeing on the screen right now because it's just been so good. I just realized the infographic is a little bit wrong. It is Typhlosion lead with Kingdra on the safe swap and Credilly in the back. Kingdra on the safe swap is the best safe swap in this cup. It is so good. There is nothing that is going to hard wall it except for maybe a Ferrothorn. The team works because you have 2 bulky Pokemon in the back and you have a very high damage fire type on the lead that has coverage for pure water types, not water types that are also paired with the ground typing, obviously. But I was able to beat some Swamperts with my Shadow Typhlosion if I was able to land the Blast Burn, because that Blast Burn does so much damage, even if it's resisted. Alright, I don't have too much to say about the team, so I'm just going to jump into the battles. Like I said, Kingdra is your safe swap, and if Kingdra can draw out the Verizion, then your Credilly should be good in the back, because there's not much that is going to be very good against Credilly in this meta, except for the Steel and Bug types, which, speaking of Steel and Bug types, we have a Jellicent on the lead. But it being on the lead is exactly why this team was working so well for me. It's because most Steel and Bug types like Scissor, like Genesect, are going to come on the lead, and Typhlosion is absolutely going to destroy them. So you want to try to take them out with your Typhlosion and hope that your opponent can't win switch. And here I misplay this game so badly because I end up taking another Ice Beam from a Quillfish, by the way, an XL Quillfish, which is really impressive from my opponent. And I am going to lose this game because of that mistake. I thought I was going to be able to survive that Ice Beam, but now it means that my opponent is going to be able to align their Genesect to our Credilly. So yeah, well played to my opponent and a very, very spicy team. Genesect, Zekrom, and XL Quillfish. Really nice team. I can't complain here that I lost, but yeah, our opponent is going to go ahead and take this first win. I must say, in today's games, I mess up a lot. So you guys are going to get to see all those mistakes. But somehow we managed to reach veteran anyways, so the game had mercy on us. I did have some sets recorded where I made a lot less mistakes and I got some 4-1s. But I decided to share with you guys the 2 3-2s that I got leading up to veteran, where I played like a potato, like an absolute potato. And speaking of playing like a potato, I let my opponent catch a Thunder Punch in this match on their Credilly, which is really annoying. I will now go for a Blast Burn against their Credilly because I really want to get a shield out of them. However, that also means that I have to give up a shield for their Rock Tomb. Okay, I'm going to go for one more Incinerate and then swap into my own Credilly since they are in a range where I can now take care of them with my Credilly. I go for a Grass Knot, but it's unfortunately not going to be enough because we are debuffed. Now they are going to bring their Tentacruel back in, go for a Scald, and then I will go for a Rock Tomb and swap out into my Kingdra. My opponent goes for a Scald here, which is really nice for us because it is quadruple resisted. So I thought maybe I caught an unintentional Scald from them. However, my opponent goes for a Scald on the next move as well, and then they swap into Credilly. We can take the Rock Tomb, that's fine. I just want to save a shield for my Typhlosion, which has energy, by the way. So just seeing what my opponent is going to bring back in. They bring in that Tentacruel. I want to get rid of it, so I go for an Octazooka. And then my opponent's final Pokemon is a Swampert. Okay, let's see what I can do. I'm going to go for a Rock Tomb and take my opponent's final shield. Thank goodness they shielded. And now with my opponent's shields out of the way, I will be able to land a Blast Burn from the Shadow Typhlosion, which is really going to hurt. We were also able to sneak in an Incinerate, which meant that I could even reach a Thunder Punch for the Swampert to take them out and take that win. That was a Typhlosion with 1 shield up, going up against a Swampert and winning that match. Moving on to the next battle, we're up against a Decidueye on the lead. Our opponent swaps out into a Typhlosion, and I'm just going to bring in Kingdra. For some reason, they're going for Blast Burn. A Thunder Punch is going to do more damage because it's neutral. However, you know, Blast Burn is perfectly fine. It is quadruple resisted, again, by Kingdra because of its water and dragon typing. Now they are going to bring that Decidueye back in. I do manage to reach an Octazooka for it, which my opponent isn't going to shield, but we do get the attack drop, which is really nice. And I'm going to bring in Typhlosion. Their final Pokemon is a Jellicent. I'm just going to weaken it with the Thunder Punch from the Typhlosion before swapping out into Critterly. I was also hoping that I could get a shield from them, but they didn't shield, which means now with my Critterly, I'm just going to go straight for the Rock Tombs. I did go ahead and shield the first move from them because the ones after are going to be debuffed. However, my opponent swaps out because our switch timers are misaligned back into Decidueye. I do still manage to take it out either way, and I can still reach a Rock Tomb for their Jellicent. Our opponent is not going to shield because they know that I could reach a Thunder Punch on Typhlosion, so we are going to take that win. Moving on to the next battle, we're up against a Shadow Galvantula on the lead. The Bug types are almost always on the lead, which is why I love Typhlosion as my first Pokemon. Now my opponent does swap out into a Bellybolt, and I did want to take a shield from them, which is why I stayed in a little bit with my Typhlosion. I baited with a Thunder Punch and still managed to get a shield from them, and then I will swap into Critterly, which is going to be resisting all the electric type moves from Bellybolt. Now my opponent brings that Galvantula back in, and we take their final shield with a Rock Tomb. I will be able to come in now with my Typhlosion and just incinerate this down. Unfortunately, I do have to give up both of my shields, but I'm just hoping that whatever my opponent has in the back, I can at least do some damage to it with our Typhlosion. It ends up being a Shadow Kingdra, so I can damage it with the Thunder Punch and then swap into my own Kingdra because I know I will be able to Dragon Breath them down before they can reach a move. And then our opponent just goes ahead and top lefts, and we take that win. And that is going to be a 3-2 in that set, getting us a little bit closer to Veteran. Moving on to the next battle, we're going to be up against a Jellicent on the lead. Okay, so for this lead, I will go for a Thunder Punch to weaken them, and then I'll swap out into my Kingdra. This should get them into yellow HP, and then Kingdra will be able to handle them more easily. However, we end up drawing a Scissor. This is good. At least it's not going to be up against our Critterly, and I can go for Octazooka, which does a pretty decent amount of damage, and we get an attack debuff. Okay, so my opponent is now forced to throw a Night Slash. Otherwise, I would have been able to Dragon Breath them down. Unfortunately for me, they still reach the Night Slash for our Typhlosion. Now I'm going to swap out immediately into my Critterly when my opponent brings that Jellicent back in. Because they're staying in, I decided to shield the first Shadow Ball, but I'm not ready quite yet to give up my second shield in case I need it. It looks like our opponent's final Pokemon is a Critterly of their own. Okay, so it's actually not looking too good for us because our opponent has 2 shields left. We have 1 shield and a half health or less than half health Typhlosion, but I will be able to go for a Thunder Punch here, which should be enough to take the Critterly out. And then it is going to come down to our Typhlosion up against a still pretty decently healthy Jellicent because Jellicent is bulky. So I decide to let Typhlosion go here, and let's see what I can do. I actually somehow end up fast moving the Jellicent down with Critterly. That is Resisted Acid up against Jellicent. I was so surprised, but I guess our opponent was not able to make it to 2 Surfs to take us out, so we actually end up taking that win. Now on to the next battle. We are going to make a huge mistake here, which is I am going to shield the Sparkling Aria that my opponent gets to here, thinking it's an Ice Beam. I should not have shielded this. This is going to cost me the game. We had a good lead with the Forretress, But now our opponent will be able to bug bite our Kingdra down and have a ton of energy for Typhlosion. And remember, Forretress has access to Rock Tomb, which is going to be super effective. So our opponent actually swaps out immediately into Belly Bolt, which is good. I can now bring in Credilli for Belly Bolt, and the charge moves are going to be resisted. They go immediately for a Zap Cannon, and I will be able to go for a Rock Tomb here, which shouldn't be enough to KO, but our opponent shields it anyways. And they swap out with energy on that Belly Bolt, so keep that in mind. My opponent goes for a Mirror Shot here. They get an attack debuff on our Credilli, which is really annoying. I'm still able to incinerate them down. However, this Belly Bolt will be able to make it to 2 parabolic charges, which is going to be so annoying. If I just had that shield from shielding the Sparkling Aria, I would have won this. I should have paid more attention and I guess counted the Psy Waves, but it's so difficult to count Psy Waves, especially since I'm running a Pokemon using a 1-turn move as well. If I was running a Pokemon using a 2-turn or a 3-turn move, then it would have been easier for me, but our opponent is going to take that win. Now moving on to the next battle, we're going to be up against a Galvantula on the lead. Our opponent swaps out immediately into a Shadow Kingdra. I go for that Thunder Punch hoping that I could weaken them, and then I swap into my Kingdra, but they go ahead and invest a shield, which is fine. Now our opponent does go for an Octazooka and we end up shielding it. A little bit unfortunate, but still I want to maintain switch and keep my Typhlosion aligned to their Galvantula. Now our switch timers were a little bit misaligned there, so I had to stay in with my Typhlosion, but I did a decent amount of damage to the Belly Bolt that our opponent swapped into, and now our Credilli should more easily be able to handle this Belly Bolt. Just gonna go for these Rock Tombs to weaken the Belly Bolt as much as possible, and we make it to another Rock Tomb. Okay, I'm not going to invest any shields. Nothing that the Belly Bolt can throw against our Credilli is going to KO, and they live with 1 HP, which is kind of annoying. However, I am going to bring in our Typhlosion here, and I'm just going to go for Thunder Punches, I think. Oh, our opponent lets it go. Okay, we can go for another Thunder Punch, get our opponent's final shield, and then they are going to be forced to throw energy. Okay, Credilli has enough health to take this win for us. We will be able to acid the Galvantula down and fast move the Belly Bolt down, and we take that win. GG's to our opponent. On to the next battle, we're going to be up against a Kangaskhan on the lead, and they swap into an Amoonguss when I bring in our Kingdra. So taking your opponent by surprise with off-meta picks is a good strategy in Ultra League, so hats off to my opponent here. And I think we are going to lose this because I was very surprised. But actually there is a place where I could have shielded and probably won the game. I'll tell you guys where. But Kangaskhan has access to Mud Slap, and Typhlosion is not going to like that. Now I do go for a Blast Burn here. I should have just baited with Thunder Punch, but I am expecting a Power-Up Punch, so I let it go, and then I swap into Credilli. Unfortunately, they're going to keep buffing their attack with that Power-Up Punch. Now I will go for a Rock Tomb here. My opponent lets it go, but it's not enough to take them out, and this is where I should have shielded. They go for a Crunch here, which really hurts our Credilli. I have 2 shields left. I do not know what I'm saving those 2 shields for, but our opponent's final Pokemon is, what is this? It's that Pokemon that evolves from the apple. Appleton, I think. Yeah, Appleton. Huh, interesting. I was not prepared for that, so I was prepared for another grass type in the back. Either way, GG's to our opponent. We are going to lose that. I played that so poorly, but at the same time, if you're caught off guard with spice picks, then it's a little bit difficult to strategize on the spot. Also, given how much I've been fumbling in these battles, you wouldn't think that this is a leaderboards push, but it is. Anyways, moving on to the next battle, we were up against a Verizion on the lead, which is a nice lead for our Typhlosion. But our opponent swaps out into a Belly Bolt, and we have the Credilli for the Belly Bolt. Now, I am going to be able to take it out here even if I don't shield the next Parabolic Charge. I'm going to build up a little bit of extra energy because I want a chance to reach a charge move on Credilli against a Verizion. That way I can debuff their attack and the Sacred Sword won't hurt as much for our Typhlosion. Now I'm gonna let the first Sacred Sword go, however our opponent has enough energy for 2. I will have to shield the next one to keep the Typhlosion healthy. I have so much energy on this Typhlosion, and I will be able to incinerate their Verizion down. Our opponent's final Pokemon is a Golisopod. I'm able to reach 2 more Thunder Punches for this Golisopod. Actually, I am going to go for the Blast Burn, just so that I could ensure that I am going to KO the Golisopod with our Typhlosion, and our opponent doesn't even see our third Pokemon. Typhlosion basically did all the work for us there. We're gonna end that set off with another 3-2. Again, playing like a potato, but hey, we're still climbing. That's what counts. Anyways, moving on to the next set, which is going to be the set where I reach Veteran. I forgot to record the first match in this set, which was the only loss that I ended up getting. It was pretty RPS anyways. But in the next match, we are up against a Jellicent on the lead, a really nice lead for us, but our opponent swaps out into a Credilli, and I kind of messed this up. I bring my Credilli in, and I am going to lose switch here because our opponent debuffed our Credilli, and it's not looking good for me. I played this so badly. I will be able to make it to another Grass Knot, however, and get our opponent pretty low to where I can come in with Typhlosion and incinerate them down. Okay, our opponent's final Pokemon is a Blastoise, which is terrible for our Typhlosion. I go for a Thunder Punch to weaken them, and then I swap out into Kingdra. Now, I am counting on my Typhlosion to take this win for us, because I want to try to incinerate the Jellicent down, and our opponent has no shields left, so if I can incinerate the Jellicent down and then have a Thunder Punch ready for their Blastoise, then I might be in a good position. Our opponent is even forced to throw 2 moves on our Kingdra, which means they have no energy left on Jellicent, which means that I can go for a couple extra Incinerates up against the Blastoise and use our shield for the Hydro Cannons, and the Jellicent will not be able to make it to a move, so we're actually able to take that win. You see, that's the nice thing about running Typhlosion, is it can hit really hard with those Thunder Punches. We just needed 2 to take that Blastoise out with a little bit of Incinerate damage. But moving on to the next battle, again, we have an amazing lead of Ferrothorn, which is absolutely going to get melted by our Typhlosion. So our opponent swaps out into Bellibolt. I can bring in our Credilli, which is absolutely going to wall Bellibolt, but the Sucker Punches are hurting. But I can start debuffing their attack with Rock Tomb. I make it to another Rock Tomb as well. I think our opponent was trying to build up to a Zap Cannon. Yeah, they let the Bellibolt go, and then they are going to bring in Ferrothorn for Credilli. Now, I was worried that my opponent might try to go for a full farm down against their Credilli and come out of that with so much energy, but they do go for a Power Whip here, and then they are able to farm us down. At this point, there is nothing that the Ferrothorn can throw against Typhlosion that is going to threaten it, because I am expecting the opponent to be running Power Whip and Flash Cannon. They swap out immediately into Jellicent, and I needed to get a shield out of the way because they still have 2 shields left. So I go for a Thunder Punch, we get the shield, and then I swap into Kingdra, and we actually get their second shield, so I'm okay with saving my final shield for our Typhlosion. But here, our opponent goes for a Surf instead of going for a Shadow Ball to take us out, and we managed to make it to that Outrage, which means our Typhlosion is just going to be able to melt their Ferrothorn, and we are going to take that win. So our opponent goes ahead and top lefts. Moving on to the next battle, again, we are going to get a nice lead of Verizion. Our opponent swaps out into Jellicent. I'm going to weaken them with a Thunder Punch before bringing in my Kingdra. I'd like to do this a lot. If our opponent swaps into a water type, then I will go for a Thunder Punch. Except unless if they swap into a water type that's also a ground type, then I'll just swap immediately. Now, we managed to take the Jellicent out, and they go ahead and shield the Outrage on Verizion. They are going to take us out with a Leaf Blade, and then I can bring Typhlosion back in. And our opponent's final Pokemon is a Kingdra. I'm just going to swap immediately into my Credilli, and I'm going to no-shield the Octazooka. Thankfully, we do not get an attack debuff. So our opponent goes ahead and shields the move from Credilli. I am going to go for a Grass Knot on the next move. It's not going to be enough to KO, but at this point, if they go for a move from Kingdra, I'm okay with letting Credilli go. However, they save it and they swap back out into their Verizion. I'm at the Blast Burn. I have to shield, otherwise I think a Sacred Sword would have been enough to take us out, but our opponent is going to have to throw energy here, which means they're not going to be able to make it to another move for Credilli either way. I have a move ready to go. I can take the Kingdra out and take that win. This is going to be the final battle of the video. I'm going to go ahead and sign off here. It's just straight RPS, honestly, in our favor, so really unfortunate for the opponents. But yeah, we do end up winning this game, and we get to Veteran 2,509 elo. And like I said, we were on leaderboards for a day, and then I dropped. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. I really hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you like my content, please consider subscribing. Maybe leave a like, it helps me out so much. And I will see you guys in my next video. Bye bye!